G'day to all the members of Regional Business Connect. Thank you to Russell for this opportunity. My name is Vanessa Rawson from Heathcote, Victoria, and really great to be with you today. I think this is my first Facebook Live, so bear with me as we get started. I am a relatively new tree changer. So 4 years ago, my husband and I moved from the busy suburbs of Melbourne to central Victoria. Beautiful town called Heathcote, which you may know for some very fine Shiraz. Hey Heidi, it's great to have you on. I did a pretty major career transformation. So I had been in human resources, predominantly in the not-for-profit sector, but also private enterprise and startup for about 10 years. Mostly unhappy in that career, and when I moved to regional Victoria, I found myself in a career I'd never heard of before called Regional Economic Development and Community Development, and I absolutely loved it. So I've done a few things since I've been up here. I've started a not-for-profit organisation called Join the Crew, which connects residents of small towns and communities with the many volunteering opportunities and small groups that are available in the town, and also showcases the town and region as a place to tree change. So we ran our first event late last year in Heathcote. It was a massive success, and I had big plans for this year, but obviously COVID reared its ugly head. And I've been working for the city of Greater Bendigo full-time, working from home. I've got colleagues that I've never met in the capacity of Economic Development Officer, and I also manage a platform called Help Your Neighbour. And that's about connecting people to essential support services like food relief and community support services in central Victoria, and also sharing messages of kindness and hope. So by way of background, I'm a writer. I'm also a journalist, and I have written for my local paper as the lead journalist for 12 months before moving back into local government. So yeah, respect, I might be a bit out of the box. I'm not a traditional small business owner, though I certainly have worked in business. So let's get started. My passion for regional development was really born, I suppose, out of my tree change, because I saw the benefits that regional living had on my own physical and mental health, as well as my partner or my husband, Trevor. In late 2017, I was almost involved in a fatal car accident on the Northern Highway here in Victoria. I was just 2 cars, 20 metres behind a head-on collision, and 1 woman died in that event, and I was with her as she died. So as you can imagine, that changed my life, and I suppose you could say I became deeply interested in the concepts of regional renewal, revitalisation, and the concept of breathing life back into places where once life may not be, or where people, I suppose, feel a bit down and out. It's taken me on the most incredible journey, and that's how Join the Crew was developed in my career in regional economic development. How many years in business? I graduated from Monash University in 2001, and I developed my career in human resources, and both my parents are teachers, and I just wanted to go and do the exact opposite to what they did. And no one in my family had come from the business world. Both my parents had come from working class backgrounds. They've done extremely well for themselves. My mother grew up in a small regional town outside of Melbourne, so you could say the country was always in my blood. But I wanted to try something different, and I went into HR. I suppose on the face of things, you could say I succeeded, but I was never really happy and never really found that place of meaning. So I've been working in regional development and community development for 4 years now. In terms of my preference for marketing Join the Crew and other organisations, predominantly local and state government that I've worked with to help them market, is through face-to-face and personal relationships. It's a lot harder with COVID-19, but I guess the beauty of being in regional areas is that it's so community-oriented and so network-based. And if you're there, I suppose, with an open heart and an open mind and want to add value and see the best for the region, people will just embrace you with open arms. That's really what's happened for me. So I use technology to drive my face-to-face relationships. So like Facebook Live, Zoom. I've built platforms in the past through blogging, LinkedIn and Twitter, and also a bit of Instagram, though I mainly use that for my personal use. I'm a wildlife photographer and nature photographer, so I love that. My biggest business disaster and how I turned it around. Probably it was eight years ago. I was in Melbourne and I was very unhappy in my HR career, and I started an HR networking community and turned that into a small business. And it was, on the face of things, like I said, it was extremely successful. I was profiled in the BRW when that was in print and or in existence, and also the AFR. But I'd have to say it was one of the worst times of my life because I was so unhappy with what I was doing and I just couldn't make things work. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where on the face of things, things look great and it should work, but it just wasn't working. And I wasn't listening to the advice of other people, and most importantly, not myself, that the career I was in just wasn't the right one for me. So one day I decided to listen to myself, and that's how I ended up in Heathcote. Long story short, that's how I ended up in Heathcote, in a new career and a new place. My most important business tools, obviously been using Zoom a lot. So I have colleagues at the City of Greater Bendigo that I've actually never met in person. I joined the city just as COVID arrived in Australia, and it became evident that we wouldn't be able to scale Join the Crew this year. So Zoom and telephone have been really important for me. Also Outlook. If I don't use the diary in Outlook, then yeah, management goes out the window, time management, and Facebook as well. My most prized business system, I'm not sure that I actually have a system, but what I have used in recent years is I love to have a big vision and then break things down into small and achievable tasks. So even if you don't know how to get to your big vision, I believe that the road presents itself every day and all you have to do is walk that road. And I use that concept in my role at the city, working collaboratively with my team members, and we agree on the direction for the platform of Help Your Neighbour and the content that goes into that, and we just have built it as it's gone, and it's evolving into something fantastic. What's your preference, running a small or large organisation? I love Join the Crew. It's a grassroots, not-for-profit organisation, as I said, and we were supported by 15 volunteers last year to deliver this event in Heathcote. It allows for a really high touch point in the community, and I absolutely love those face-to-face connections and relationships. But having said that, the developmental opportunities would not have come to me unless I had worked in local government and state government. So I suppose I love the balance of being able to do both. Can't ever see myself running a large organisation, though never say never. How do I maintain my work-life balance? I have been forced to learn the hard way, you could say, probably more than once. So earlier this year, I was actually diagnosed with a thyroid condition and I have managed to get on top of that. But the big reason that Trevor and I moved to Heathcote was to gain that work-life balance and to get off that hamster wheel of, I call it running the gauntlet, and just feel like, you know, you're just living to work and you're just getting on the train and going into Melbourne and it's an hour and a half each way, and all it feels like is, yeah, you're earning great money, but what's the life that you're living? So I've developed my hobbies this year. COVID has been particularly good for that. There's all sorts of opportunities to get out into nature and socially distance and get out and do the things that we love doing. I'm much better at shutting the computer down at 5 or 5:30 now. My husband might argue with that, but let's just say it's a work in progress. What's the most important thing to do when managing a team? I've learned a lot of leadership lessons, you could say the hard way, though I believe that leadership, it's an evolving journey, and as we mature and grow as people and listen to ourselves, we become better leaders. So the number one thing that I've learned is to really listen, and my role as a journalist has taught me to do this, and it's extremely important to listen to body language and listen to the things that aren't said. And if you take the time to deeply listen to your people, they will open up and trust and give you 110% and maybe more. Like I said, I managed to engage 15 volunteers to help me deliver this new event in Heathcote last year, and we had 300 people attend, including prospective tree changers and traditional locals in the community who may have shied away from things that they might have thought were new and city concepts. So the big thing I have learnt is to deeply listen and understand that people are people. Everyone has a background, everyone has a story, and to respect that at work and to take the time for your people is incredibly important. If you don't, what's the most important piece of advice you've received when running a successful business? Look, I've tried a lot of things, and some things have worked really well and other things haven't worked. I'll be open about that. The biggest, the most important piece of advice I've learned is that if you don't succeed, learn why and try again. And it may not be in the same sector or even in the same way, but try again. So one thing I know I'm really good at and I love doing is bringing people together to talk about creating better futures and building social change. The setting that wasn't working for me was in corporate at the time a decade ago, but what is really, really working for me now is in regional Victoria, where I love to be. The lesson I have learnt through myself is, I think one of the hardest lessons that we learn, or one of the most challenging lessons, is backing yourself. Everyone gets that niggling voice of self-doubt, right? So it's believing in yourself, because if you don't, who else is going to? And also asking for help. I've traditionally thought that I have to work it out by myself, but there's nothing better than, I suppose, getting an advisory body around you or a group of mentors and people who are willing to sort of push and challenge you and be kind in their feedback. That has been so valuable to me. So I guess that wraps up my 10 at 10. If anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. I will hang around for another minute or two, but it's been great to share the 10 at 10. It's a wonderful concept. Certainly something we could possibly look at down here in Victoria as well. So thanks, Heidi, for joining. Steve as well. Russell, great. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Yes, Heidi, I've had a really interesting career. I absolutely love what I do. I've always been a writer, and I think I am a community gatherer. And I didn't necessarily recognise that, but the great thing is that it's not too late, and I did, and I'm doing what I love. We might leave things for here now, but thank you once again, Russell, and look forward to catching more 10 at 10.